Born in Blood by COVID Candy. Chapter 441 Eagle's Nest. Liam's room honestly resembled a presidential office more than it did a war zone, which was usually how Liam left the state of his rooms. Seating himself on the posh seat behind the mahogany desk, Liam reclined and waited for jargon to explain the events of the past 6 years. Testing his brand new sea of consciousness was on the back of his mind, but it could wait. "Take a seat, if you'd like," Liam said. "We might be here a while." "I'll stand, sir," Jargon said firmly, crossing his hands behind his back. "Where do I begin?" "Beginning, of course." Jargon took a brief pause. "Well, the alliance is still up and running. The Pasha sent you a get well postcard once he realized you were in a coma." Liam arched his brow. Jargon gestured at his ring with a wry smile. Liam peered through it again, taking out a little black card, made of regular paper and colored with regular red ink. He pulled it out of its casing, which was just a smaller version of it. It had a cartoonish drawing of a crude thumbs up, the hand belonging to a skinny, ashen-skinned vampire. On the side, it said, with disproportionate letters, "By the time you're reading this, several years of your life have been torn to shreds. Unlucky, little reap." A moment of silence. "Did you see Ucladd deliver this?" Liam asked quietly. Jargon shook his head, confused a little. "It came through a tiny bat, which could speak, actually. We didn't open it up until now." Liam quietly hummed to himself. "Then it didn't come from him," Liam said, sighing. "It came from someone else. Minister of Torture, most likely." "How kind of him." "Liam would have to pay him back some time." "Never mind that." "What else?" Jargon nodded, continuing. "I'll just spitball the major events. Hand of Light has renamed the dual empire into the New Republic. He's closed off his borders to everyone else but his own clan, and we don't really know what he's planning. Iho, Nurin and Ikoria still haven't taken any action against Alali or Corsa in retaliation for the war. The Imperial Legion has also been silent, but they've been inactive for quite some time now." Jargon made a slightly bitter face. "But, Ikorian royalty has publicly promised revenge. They've already blocked out all trade and denied anyone from visiting Alali." Liam made a surprised face. "Oh, how mysterious and sinister. Have they done anything more than that?" Jargon shook his head. "No, sir." Makes sense, Liam thought. All Iho cares about is alchemy, and all Nurin cares about is knowledge and inscriptions. Ikorians are powerful, but they're idiots. Whatever they're plotting, they should have acted when I was sleeping. Ucladd wouldn't bother with my death. He'd like it very much, in fact. Liam honestly questioned why the royals were so stupid. What was holding them back from laying waste to the surrounding countries? Definitely not benevolence. Only thing to worry about is those pesky imperialists, Liam thought. I feel like the only person Ucladd doesn't want to fight against is the general. After a short pause, Jargon continued. Also, 2 new countries have announced their status as a powerhouse. Zaltra and Rurunia. The former hails from an Amazonian-type country, and the latter is a tribal, desert type. I'm pretty sure they were just keeping quiet about their powerhouse status, but were probably worried about an invasion like the Dual Empire. Liam arched a brow. For 23 years of his life, no country had announced their new status as powerhouses. Novel B1N. And yet, for the 6 years he'd been under, such grand events had taken place back to back. Liam felt like he had skipped a day of school just for a world-famous celebrity to visit. Not that he liked celebrities. What else? That can't be all there is to it. Jargon nodded. Well, the temple has gathered a lot of knowledge and information about the world for the past 6 years. Lesser powerhouses, oceaners, magical lands and other organizations have been listed down. Would you like to browse through them? Liam pursed his lips. Right. He had certain responsibilities as a leader. A moment later, he shook his head. No, not right now. I'll get into those later. Anything else? Not much, Jargon said. Rin, the dragon's flame, and Nord, the giant's heir, have also obtained zenith status. Including the little one. Quite famous, too, sir. Liam sighed. Who cares? Nobody. Not Liam. Not anyone with more than 2 brain cells. Other than that, the Pasha asked you to contact him once you woke up. Unless you want me to tell you the lesser details throughout the years, that's all. No need, Liam said. I'll work on eating the rest of the Empress. I'll ask you for those later. Jargon nodded firmly, then excused himself. Alone again. Liam pursed his lips in thought. Of course, eating the Empress corpse was next. But what after? The biggest threat to his life was, to his dismay, the Icorian kingdom and, to his disdain, his attachment to Ucladd. Right now, Liam was like a finch living under an eagle's nest. It had its protection, but for how long? What if the eagle decided it wanted a little snack? A little desert? I have to distance myself from him. One way or the other. Becoming a zenith was not a bad idea, though. Starting by nomming down some rank 6 meat. I'll have Kyrian give me some tips on how to form my path, Liam thought. It's different for everyone, though, so I'll ask the rest too. With a rank 4 consciousness, paired with strong blood, Liam was pretty sure he could alter where the nourishment of his body could go. A bit of blood had slipped into his mouth during the massacre, and he could redirect it where to go. Only slightly, though, so he'd have to be careful. Liam got to work, and time slowly passed. Chapter 442 Flashlight. As time passed, Liam adjusted to his new mind. His mental waves were incredibly dense, and were enough to affect physical things. Liam could shatter a rank 1 and rank 2 mind with funny ease. Nov, pound 1n. However, a rank 3 mind may or may not take longer to crush. However, contrary to expectation, the mental sphere did not improve Liam's spell arsenal. Rank 3 mental spells functioned the same before, only they had more range and could be used heavier. Other than that, they were the same thing. They weren't built for a rank 4 mind, otherwise they definitely would have improved. Also, Liam finally tinkered with his king's eye. He could finally change the color of it to whatever he wanted. From golden yellow, to sapphire blue, to ruby red, to plain white. He could also constrict and dilate his pupils to fill out the scara, which was a neat little party trick. Pretty useless, but otherwise neat. However, out of all of Liam's spells, the shadow clone spell had advanced. Accompanied by the Empress, Liam used the spell and watched as his core produced an identical copy of himself. Just one. Liam raised a brow. The shadow clone looked at Liam with a blank expression. It was still fully black, made from darkness, but its form was much more rigid and sturdy. Do you have your own mind or something? This seems like a downgrade. Silence. Then. The shadow clone nodded. It seemed to have some part of Liam's consciousness. Liam could still control it. Except other than that, the clone could control itself and move wherever it wanted to. Can't speak, though? Liam asked the shadow. The shadow clone shook his head. Still a little surprised, Liam nodded satisfyingly to himself. Good, good. If speech was from silver, then silence was gold. A wise saying by wise men. You can't stab me in the back, right? Liam asked again, a little seriously this time. The shadow clone raised a brow, shaking his head silently, then making a quiet chuckle. The shadow clone didn't seem like it would dissipate any time soon. Wondering how long it would last, Liam sent the shadow clone outside, but not before adorning it with his king's eye. The clone would not last indefinitely. It had a timer ingrained into it, and once it ran out, the darkness-made fellow would crumble apart. Liam just didn't know when. Just don't cause too much havoc, yes, Liam told it. I've had enough problems on my hands. The shadow clone smiled broadly, then nodded before leaving. As it left, Liam couldn't help but feel a little bit worried. Shouldn't it have been a nod, then a smile? He did it out of order. Oh well, what's the worst that could go wrong? Liam looked back at the Empress with an assessing gaze. Now that he realized, he never really did use spirit sight on her. Just then, Liam used spirit sight. It was like his vision was filtered with a lens. Damn it, I can't see her insides clearly. To his dismay, the Empress' body was too powerful. It treated Liam's spirit sight like it didn't matter. Liam pursed his lips in thought. He had an idea. Shuffling through a few items in his rings, Liam found an inscription device some nifty elders had invented. It was a black cylindrical device, the top of which was flat and covered with a piece of mirror. Behind the mirror was a tiny sunstone, which absorbed light. On the side of the device was a tiny switch. Liam flicked it on. The sunstone flashed with blinding light, filling the entire office with glaring radiance. Essentially, it was a giga-powered flashlight. Rank 4 to be precise. Liam put the flashlight straight on the Empress figure, then used his spirit sight again. He could see through her now. Just a little, though. A few minutes of adjusting the perfect position, Liam placed the flashlight under her to brighten her entire figure. Now, he could see her perfectly. Liam focused. The first thing Liam noticed was how jam-packed the Empress' body was with ethereal dark energy. It swirled through her being like human nerves, but it wasn't disorderly or jumbled together. It's steadily weakening, though. In the center of her chest was where it was most prevalent. The solar plexus. All the energy was emerging from there, like a small coal burning with violent flames. The anatomy of her body was relatively normal. She had a regular skeleton with the necessary organs, like the heart, brain, and lungs. Her core was dormant, and the Empress' darkness aura wasn't visible because of it. Since she was dead, her mental sphere had long cracked and disappeared. I can't see what's in her chest, though, Liam thought. Is it unique to her path or something? Liam didn't know. But a bright idea surfaced in his mind. What if he used the black hole to suck all that energy out? And do what with it, genius? Indeed, Liam had no surefire way to entrap and secure such an energy. Could he even do so? Maybe once it weakens to a certain point, until then, I can find a way to ensnare it somehow. A moment later, Liam ordered Kyrian to help him cut a bit more of the Empress' flesh. Despite 6 years passing, the Empress' hands were just slightly softer than normal. He was barely at her wrist in terms of progress. After hours and hours of groaning effort, Kyrian managed to rip out a small thumb-size amount of meat, before excusing herself. Months passed idly as Liam slowly digested more and more pieces of the Empress. His mind scattered like clouds in every direction. Liam wanted to make new techniques. He wanted to update his arsenal. Make a new weapon. A new sword perhaps. Or something entirely unique. He could definitely do it. Make something in the middle tier or upper tier of rank 4. After all, blood weaving and primordial forging went hand in hand, boosting each other in amazing ways. In fact, Liam was intent on upgrading the inscription and forging methods themselves. But once his blood advanced, it would take it to new realms. And not long after, Liam's blood churned. It was happening. Chapter 443 Mayor of Mount Mayhem. After 3 months, around the 2-week mark, Liam's blood churned violently. Like always, it had to inflict the worst pain on him as he advanced. The opposition again, Liam said as he curled around himself. Ah, it hurts. He slowly reached the fetal position, convulsing like a shrimp having a seizure. Lush. Liam's blood hardened within his body and slashed through his skin. Razor-sharp spikes burst from all over his body. Jick. The nails on his quad arms shot off like bullets. Zzzzzzzzhhhrrr. It was like his blood had turned into a flesh shredder, cleaving apart his insides. The only thing that was safe was his chaos pearl and core. His heart and lungs were literally ripped apart like pieces of paper. His skeleton cracked all over as blood seeped into it, causing it to explode and shatter from within. Except his king's eye, all his organs were being shredded. Even his left eye was sucked in like a vacuum, then crushed like a soft grape. He was heartbroken. He was crushed. He was liquidated. Liam almost chuckled as he thought of that, but he had no teeth or mouth, or throat to laugh with. It had all been shredded. Liquidated. Stretched. Crushed. Twisted. For several minutes, Liam had turned into a ravaging urchin, turning his office to shreds. So much for that. But the thing with losing one's sanity is, you don't have to lose it again. Otherwise, Liam was pretty sure he would lose his mind if he hadn't already. Obviously, the opposition was responsible for causing his blood advancement to be such a cancerous process. To Liam's knowledge, vampires didn't have to go through this when they advanced. But that was because the law of balance was already applied to them, their snail-paced progress. To Liam, there was no such thing. This was already harder than the struggle-tribulation. One had to remember that Liam's struggle-tribulation was harder than most. But this was many times that. And quite frankly, the opposition had the opposite of a soft spot for him. For reasons he had yet to figure out. What uninhabitable world? What horrors? What war? As if he knew. The process continued for several minutes. It was very, very painful. But slowly, his heart and lungs were put back together, replaced with renewed blood tissue. His heart was shaped weird. It was less like a slanted oval and more like an uneven circle. Smaller too, but instead of tube-like arteries, little tendrils emerged from its surface. It was resembling the heart of a vampire. But it was not a nexus. Nor a new, special center of power. That was foolish to think. A circular heart that pumps blood through the usage of thin tendrils seemed to be the most efficient way of transporting blood. But unlike the vampires, it was not as potent and powerful. Still, this was an amazing perk to have. Liam's new heart nerves connected to the rest of his body. Slowly, Liam's organs were slowly regenerating. His liquidated insides condensed together and formed his left eye. His skeletal matter was slowly solidified, reforming with back-to-back cracking noises. Liam's bones were covered with a strange dark crimson hue. A moment later, his lungs, stomach, and other organs had eventually reformed. All of his organs had a vermilion theme to them. Like they had become one with Liam's blood. Eventually, the shredder stopped, shredding. Liam was still in a fetal position when the pain stopped. He was in the backseat of a roller coaster of death, and it had finally ended. Still alive, though. Slowly, Liam sat upright. Blood colored the floor, walls, and ceiling, as though a massive balloon had exploded at its center. But there weren't any droplets of blood on Liam's naked body. Liam had to calm his mind for a second. NOV/E/L/B/1N. His nerves were incredibly sensitive. Even someone like him had to take a breather and relax for a second. 1 second passed. He was done relaxing. Liam felt the effects of his new body straight away. Liam felt like he was pure liquid. A certain martial artist would be proud. Blood was circulating throughout him in incredible ways, reaching every morsel of his body. Stretching out a hand, Liam used transfiguration. His arm twisted and turned, as though it was a piece of wrung cloth. But there was no blood or wound. Slowly, the arm was transforming. Lengthening and expanding in size, Liam's right arm took the form of an oversized demonic claw, adorned with black scales topped off with fierce talons. It was twice the size of his body. And yet, Liam was only using 50% of his ichor. Unheard of. But it didn't end there. Liam's hair retracted back into his scalp, and his arm reverted back to normal. I have so much control over myself. It feels unreal. Liam's entire body was being transformed. Slowly, his torso grew longer. His bones stretched, and he even formed more of them. Liam's blood literally converted into bone matter. From 5 feet 6 inches in height, he grew to a freakish 7 feet 3 inches stature. With his frame and skinny ribcage elongated as well, the result was an otherworldly look. Also, his hair grew longer, mop-like and unkempt, making him seem like some eldritch spawn. A second later, a pair of eyes burst from the back of his head. Liam could see through them. Right after, two more pairs of hands burst from Liam's side. He could easily control them. Laughter. Liam couldn't help but laugh a little. Well, maybe not a little. It was the laugh of a maniac who reveled in gaining power. It was the laugh of Liam Royce. Full bodily control. Transfiguration had expanded to his organs and overall skeletal system. Now, Liam could more or less change his form entirely whatever he wanted. He was in the middle of his laughter when the door opened. It was Jargon. "Sir, we've just resign." Jargon's jaw dropped. Liam furrowed his brows a bit. "What is it, Jargon?" "I'm busy." Jargon fumbled his words and tried to regain himself. "Sir, you've just received an invitation from the mayor of Mount Mayhem." Chapter 444 Important People Convention. When Jargon made the sudden declaration, Liam arched both his eyebrows in confusion. The who of what? Liam knew none by that name. Mayor of Mount Mayhem. And yet, Jargon spoke his moniker as though an esteemed gentleman had invited him for a feast. Jargon attempted to speak, but stuttered as he tried to find the correct words. Studying his thoughts, Liam realized his appearance was too terrifying. What is that form? Jargon thought, hiding the fear and panic from appearing on his face. I'm gonna hurl if I look at it any longer. I put so much time into polishing this place. Jargon let out an inward sigh. Rude, Liam thought. He's lucky I'm in a good mood. With his body twisting, turning, and cracking all at the same time, Liam's form slowly returned back to a humanoid shape. As humanoid as could be. He still had 4 arms, claws and tentacles on his back. But the thing with this form was that it didn't require blood to transform into. N-O-V/E-L/B/1-N. It was his base body, but he could still alter it at will, which was a nice thing to have. But he didn't have to stick with it anymore. Liam felt like he could become even a magical beast. Opposite to expel, admit had to work marvelously now. And expel must be stupidly powerful. As Liam finally reverted back to his usual appearance, Jargon was visibly relieved. "Thank you, my liege, forgive my rudeness, but I was just surprised by—" "It's fine, Jargon," Liam interrupted, sitting straight. "Continue." Jargon cleared his throat. "The mayor of Mount Mayhem is a powerhouse, sir. One without a country or following. He's known to be an eccentric of some kind, but there's no record of him fighting." Liam creased his brows. A powerhouse that didn't fight? How was that possible? And what did a person like that want to do with Liam? He sent a talking owl that came to deliver an invitation. Requested your presence by name and all your monikers. Liam raised a brow. All my monikers? Jargon nodded. Young Butcher, Blood Demon, Golden-Eyed Vagrant, Shadow Demon, Black Blade, Reaper, and all the others. Liam was genuinely surprised. He hadn't heard those nicknames in a while. He grew pensive. Is the owl still here? Jargon nodded. Yes, sir. Liam nodded in response. Let it in. Not so fast, though. I need a few people to put this place back together. Appearances were important. Jargon nodded and took out a jade. A few moments later, a few Earth Elemental Zeniths entered the office and restructured it perfectly. They suppressed their initial shock as they saw all the blood and filth there, but got to work not long after. Eventually, the office was fully reformed. Reclining comfortably in his cushy seat, Liam ordered for the owl to be let in. As it entered Liam's mental wave range, Liam confirmed that it was indeed an owl. A few shouts of annoyance belonging to a raspy, squeaky, foreign voice grew louder in the hallways of Liam's temple. That's quite strange, if I say so myself, Liam uttered under his breath. It doesn't even have a mental sphere. It was the owl shouting curse words. Damn you, I'm not a toy. Stop grabbing my feathers like I'm some sort of doll. What's with you people? Several curse words later, the owl stumbled into Liam's office floor, hectically shutting the door behind him with a free wing. The owl took deep breaths as he held the door shut with both wings, but there was no one on the other side. It was just Liam and the owl. Liam looked at the eccentric creature with assessing eyes. The hooter was on the larger side of the spectrum. One could call it human-sized, but calling it a midget would be more accurate. It had fluffy, now roughed up, yellow and orange feathers, which had a lustrous glow on their own. It had large beady black eyes, a tiny, white curved beak, and perked up little ears. It wore a black and white tuxedo suit on its chest, the coat of which dragged behind it. A black top hat was on its head, and a monocle on one of its eyes, giving it a gentlemanly look. A talking owl wearing a tuxedo and a top hat, Liam thought. I've truly seen it all. As it saw Liam looking at him with dead eyes, the owl visibly shuddered and refined its mannerisms, adjusting its roughened feathers and top hat. A moment later, it managed what looked like a smile. Esteemed sir, the owl said with an outstretched wing, another wing curved behind his back. A respectful gesture of some kind. I, as a messenger of Sir Cornelius Marrow III, also known as the Mayor of Mount Mayhem, invite you to the first ever, Important People Convention. Silence. A long silence. Liam made no reaction. And the owl felt incredibly uncomfortable, but he didn't show it. It was such a grand announcement. Why was there no response? Not even a question? Damn you. But the owl obviously didn't speak his mind. In fact, he knew who he was talking to. The Reaper had gone quiet for a very long time. But news of him waking up from the self-tribulation had surfaced. And yet, the world had never seen him come out during that time. Now that he did, the exaggerated rumors proved only to be watered down. The owl felt more than a little terrified of that primordial dread leaking from Liam's gaze. The owl hated his job. Curse you, Cornelius! Curse you! After quite a long silence, Liam realized he was looking at the owl a little too fiercely. There was no malice in his gaze. At least, to his knowledge. He was just enamored by the sight of an owl wearing a top hat and suit. He was using spirit sight, too, but the owl was perfectly normal. I still don't sense a sea of consciousness within him. I don't think he's a magical beast, either. Done with his scrutiny, Liam reclined on his chair, put a fist to his cheek and rested his head on it. What is this, Important People Convention? Chapter 445 Loner. The owl heaved a tense breath he didn't know he was holding. With the atmosphere finally mellowed a little, he managed another smile and adjusted his monocle. The mayor has always been fond of new personalities and renowned celebrities, the messenger owl said, gesticulating with his wings. He considers himself a graceful host for the ages. A people knower, a middleman, the connector. He brings people together through parties and feasts, but in exchange, they have to give him a demonstration of their powers without hiding a single thing. A hint of annoyance and disgust appeared on Liam's face. What kind of deranged person would agree to such a thing? Not Liam. Slightly panicked, the owl quickly continued before Liam got the wrong idea. Of course, the mayor's reputation would be rendered null if he were to ever let another soul know what you show him. In fact, he'll tell you everything about his own powers and more, under a binding oath. Subsequently, the sole reason he has become a powerhouse was due to his trustability. I'll have you informed, esteemed gentlemen, that the mayor has lived for roughly 2 millennia. His connections are insurmountable. Liam rubbed his bottom lip with his index finger. The owl was speaking in a posh, gentlemanly accent, and Liam was inclined to believe the cute little thing. At first glance, the mayor of Mount Mayhem seemed like an honest person. The guy who knew a guy, who knew another guy, who also knew another guy. Having a person like that on one's jade was not a bad thing. And quite frankly, Liam's issue at the moment was exactly this. A lack of connections. Who did Liam know other than the Temple and the Alliance members? Nobody, really. They were all his enemies. What a loner. Connections were necessary when wanting to grow one's clan, sector, or organization, Be it natural resources, artifacts, lands to seize, wealth to reap, enemies to kill, places to conquer. For someone that was 2,000 years old, the mayor must have made a mountain's worth of connections. To be fair, it was a little eerie how this came to Liam at the perfect time. Liam was a little lost on what to do, but he supposed this was the next step. Not so fast, though. What did the mayor gain from this? It was foolish to think he wanted to be the middleman because it was fun. What good was a cultivator's powers if all it did was depend on others to get stronger? That was very strange to Liam, and quite frankly, a bit weird and foolish. He wants to be a fixer of some kind, Liam thought. Ask people for a favor of some kind now and again, is it? That made the most sense, and so Liam went with that. Important People Convention. Did he not have a better name available? Liam thought. Can't judge, though. Liam glossed over the details of this little get-together. Events like parties, feasts and celebrations were hardly enjoyable for Liam. They almost always consisted of people who needed their egos stroked, or required validation for their achievements. Disgusting. One had to look at what happened to the last party Liam went to. A war was waged. A vow of bloodshed was sworn. Novel B/in. But parties of the cultivation world weren't the same as any other. They were either to discuss newfound knowledge about the countless fields, inscriptions, formations, or alchemy, or to trade cultivation techniques and advice. Or, like the Important People Convention, to share connections. Liam pursed his lips. He had to confirm a few things first. Who's coming to this convention? Liam asked the patient owl. The owl smiled. Proudly, too. Liam felt a boast incoming. Starting with the most popular, the General, the Queen of Ikoria, the two new powerhouses of Arunia and Zaltra, Eyes of Knowledge, and the Sage. Silence. Oh, and Pasha will be coming, too. Liam actually had his breath taken away for a second. All those people really agreed to show the mayor all their powers? That was unheard of, quite frankly. Eyes of Knowledge was Nuren's leader and powerhouse. The Sage was the moniker that belonged to the so-called Father of Alchemy, and was also the head of Iho. Not to mention, Ucladd was coming to this too? Liam didn't expect that at all. Maybe that postcard was from him after all. This mayor guy, he might not be that bad, Liam thought. Not if so many important people wanted to come. Just then, Liam understood the Important People Convention. Genius. There was a short second of silence. Please keep in mind that these people are owners of countries, the owl commented firmly. They have their own privileged spaces. Liam hummed to himself. As he thought. The strong were favored. Unavoidable. If they feel like you've annoyed them, they have the power to request an eviction, which the mayor could choose to accept or deny depending on the circumstance. Silence. I see, Liam said. I see. Another pause. What stops the powerhouses from killing me? Liam said suddenly. What stops them from understanding my powers? What stops me from understanding theirs? The messenger all smiled once more. Liam felt another boast incoming. That's the thing with the mayor, sir, the owl said proudly. All those who live on Mount Mayhem are more or less equal in strength. It is a pacifying zone. All their special abilities are already taken into account, and are promptly taken away. Once we're there, even me and Ucladd could be on the same level of strength. The owl laughed heartily, but once he saw that Liam wasn't laughing, it turned into an awkward chuckle, followed by silence. The owl coughed into his wing. Apologies, sir. Though, in reality, Liam wasn't actually trying to mock or make the owl uncomfortable. This was just part of conversing with him now. Liam made several considerations of whether or not to go. I guess I really do need to go out more, Liam thought. Won't get any stronger living like a hermit. Liam tilted his head at the owl. When's this taking place? Chapter 446 Letter. Looking at the owl, Liam realized he was quite lucky to be considered for an invitation to such a stacked meeting. He wasn't even a full zenith yet, and here he was, dipping his toe in the big pond. A big part of it probably had to be Liam's alliance with Ucladd. The situation was similar to being an associate with the richest man in the world. Just knowing the man would bring one in contact with filthy rich individuals. But one had to remember that Liam was not too far behind in terms of infamy. He was the, somewhat, heir of the eternal sword. Ever since his sea of consciousness entered the fourth rank, his eyes were sharper than ever. Making eye-to-eye contact with someone could actually make them feel a sharp pain. There was that tiny sigil on his skin, too, which was a brand of an Odachi. He could change its color, but never wipe away the mark itself. Other than that, Liam was also famous for being the masked young man that fought in the Alalian tournament, and managed to kill a zenith. Thus, it wasn't too far of a stretch to say that Liam earned his right among these people. More or less. "It'll take place in a month, sir," the messenger said in response to his question. "At Mount Mayhem." "And this Mount Mayhem is where exactly?" Just then, the owl took out something from his breast pocket. The tuxedo had pockets. How cute. What the owl took out was a little postcard, awfully similar to what the Minister of Torture had sent him. But instead of being matte black and filled with sarcasm, this one was made out of pure gold. Etched on its thin metallic surface were little inscribed letters. Cursive. Posh. Neat. A blind man could see how highly the mayor valued gentlemanliness. An ingrained quality, just like Liam's unloose hinges. Liam took the card from the owl's outstretched wing, giving it a thorough examination. "Dear Liam Royce. I, Sir Cornelius Marrow III, would like nothing more than to make your acquaintance at my personal abode, the Mountain of Mayhem. Fret not about the name, dear friend, there is no chaos here. None to your displeasure, of course. It'll be a splendid evening, tailored to your tastes, with amenities a powerhouse cannot be disappointed with. See you there. Cheers. Signed, Cornelius." The postcard ended there. On the side of the card, there was a bright golden arrow that pointed towards the northwest. Nov, LB, 1N. Towards Mount Mayhem. I can hear his accent already, Liam thought with a hidden smile. "Can I bring anyone?" Liam asked. Not that he really wanted to bring anyone. Having protection made him seem weak. The owl made a bitter face. "I'm afraid not, sir. Only those with an invitation can come." Silence. "Very well," Liam said after a few seconds. "I'll be there." The owl beamed happily. His job was finally over. He could go home. He could curse Sir Cornelius to his 11th generation where no one could hear him. "One more thing, Hooter," Liam said, and the owl comically raised a brow. "Are you a naturally talking animal?" The messenger owl chuckled slightly. "That knowledge belongs to the mayor, sir. Once you meet with him, he'll tell you everything he knows. So long as you do the same, that is," the Hooter added with a small smile. There was a short pause. "If there's nothing else," the owl said, "I'd love to take my leave now." Liam nodded. "Feel free." Turning around, the owl was about to open the door, when it suddenly shivered. He turned back to Liam with a wry smile. You wouldn't happen to have another exit, would you?" Liam hid a grin. "Why?" Pausing, the owl wanted to pick out the correct words without offending Liam in any way. It struggled. There was no kind way to put it. The entire temple consisted of ruffians and madmen and women. Particularly, the women wanted to pick his perfect little feathers and cuddle with him like a teddy bear. Sensing that the creature grew uncomfortable, Liam pointed to the window adjacent to a few bookshelves. The owl looked at Liam like he was his savior. A second later, he shot out the glass like a bullet. Liam heard vague laughter as the owl got a certain distance away. A laugh of joy. Reclining in his chair, Liam reckoned it was time he prepared seriously for this massive event. But he had a feeling he shouldn't continue eating any more of the Empress body. At least, until this party was over with. Why? Well, if Liam were to give out an entire list of what he could do, all those powers would get stupidly powerful once his core was rank 4. In the first place, a month was not enough for Liam to advance. It would take 2 or 3 months in total, and even that was not guaranteed. One had to remember that after the self and struggle tribulations, there was the defense tribulation. It consisted of just defending himself against darkness attacks as his core advanced. Arguably, it was easier to accomplish compared to the rest. But who knew what the opposition had in store for Liam? He certainly didn't want to advance in the middle of a party. How embarrassing would that be? Instead, there were 3 things Liam had in mind that he wanted to do during this 1 month. Obviously, testing expel, admit, and disfiguration was an honorable mention. 1. Hunting a rank 5 beast. Yes, it was cocky and foolish, but he wasn't actually hopeful in killing it. He just wanted to test his strength in the most difficult way possible. 2. Improving his blood weaving. There was untapped potential there. A massive amount. He just needed to tinker around and make it happen. 3. Improving his swords. It went without saying that his swords were a little out of touch with the rest of his powers. After all, Liam's own hardened blood could be a rank 4 inscribed item. These 3 were lofty goals, and Liam didn't think he could accomplish all 3 of them during the short period of a single month. But he would try. Chapter 447. Too slow. Liam used a shadow clone. A copy was formed instantly. There was a moment of silence as Liam gave it a firm, dark stare that bore into the iteration's soul. The clone looked back with a wry smile. The last time Liam had let the clone do its own thing, it had mingled amongst the acolytes and romanced a young zenith. But not just one. Several. Liam's face fell when he realized that. And people were congratulating him on making a harem. A note was left in Liam's office that day, placed on his desk. Just a prank, bro. Followed by an awfully realistic depiction of the clone laughing his heart out, pointing at Liam. It took some time, and a few sticky situations involving the woman in question, for the problem to be resolved. From that day on, Liam made a silent vow never to use the shadow clone ability. He allowed the damn thing to split off and didn't monitor his movements, but that idiot ended up stabbing him in the back. But now... well, he needed to avoid everyone's gaze at the moment. They would never allow him to fight a rank 5 creature entirely on his own. Of course, he could just command them to stay behind, and they would most likely listen. But they'd still linger close by and watch him from a distance, annoying him. No. He needed to risk his life doing this. It had to be authentic. You understand why I'm pissed, right? Liam asked the clone darkly. The clone nodded, unfazed. He was not scared of Liam. He was Liam. What man feared himself? They only hated themselves. But they never feared themselves. Liam controlled the clone and forced him to sit in his seat. Despite being made out of darkness, Liam's chair wasn't corroded, scratched, or broken. It was made with sturdiness in mind. Just sit quietly, Liam said seriously, not an inch of amusement in his tone, and don't move a single limb, retard. Liam just couldn't suppress it. He had to curse at himself. The clone creased his brows, flipping both fingers at Liam and keeping them up. Night fell. Quietly, Liam slipped through his office from the sea of darkness and used Shadow Blink to teleport himself as far from his temple as he could. His shadows and blood wrapped around him, giving him a brand new view of the world each time he teleported. With his new blood, Liam could blink far vaster distances. Before, it was roughly 450 meters. Now, it was 1,250 meters. Obviously, the blood usage was also lesser. But since the distance was greater, Liam used roughly 25% of his ichor to travel 750 meters. At first glance it may not have seemed like much, but it couldn't be underestimated. The cruel law of balance had obviously kicked in. After all, this ability basically allowed Liam to abort a fight whenever he felt like it. Though, if his opponent was ever fast enough to disrupt the process, Liam wouldn't be able to teleport successfully. In fact, when he teleported long distances, it took a little longer than blinking a short distance. Roughly 1.5 seconds. This seemed like a very small amount of time. But to Zeniths, it was a massive window of opportunity that was impossible for them not to exploit. That meant that even if Liam initially teleported out of fighting range, there was a high chance for him just to be chained with back-to-back attacks, denying him his teleportation. That is, if the fight ever lasted that long. Liam used Shadow Blink 2 more times, passing a total distance of 1,800 meters, before stopping. 50% of his blood was lost. But his complexion wasn't ghastly and his figure was still normal. Mostly. He was just a tiny bit skinner. Liam appeared on top of a black mountain. All around him were massive dark mountains, creating a chain that ringed across 1,000 meters. In the center was the largest mountain, with a massive gorge that was layered with an intricate layer of shimmering silk webs, glowing under the moonlight. In fact, within all these mountains were thousands of little caverns and holes, clogged with cobwebs. A noxious black mist naturally wafted in the air, slightly stinging Liam's nose. Skittering noises entered his ears. As soon as he appeared, dozens of red eyes appeared within the holes of the thousands of caves. This was a rank 5 danger zone. Liam's shifter sense, shadow sense, and mental energy picked up on thousands of little creatures, differing in size. Spiders. Slowly, spiders crawled out of their holes, revealing their gruesome forms. Red fangs. The name came from the distinct 2 fangs on the spider's front jaw, designed to grab, rip and scythe through flesh, before sucking it down like a mosquito. Also, they had wide, freakishly long limbs that could cause one to shudder uncontrollably. For the rank 3s, their limbs reached a total of 12 meters when outstretched. And for their rank 4 counterpart, it was twice that length. But their bodies were only 7 meters in length, the size of a massive bear. Their cephalothorax and abdomen, covered with a dark crimson chitin, were flat and parallel to the ground. There were distinct patterns on their backs, as though ancient drawings depicting death. Before long, Liam was swarmed from all directions. Liam made a wide grin, spreading his arms. His eyes fell on the towering mountain in the center, where his king's eye pierced through the veils of cobwebs and darkness. He could see it. He was being watched. By the disgusting, huge, fearsome rank 5 creature. Liam laughed loudly. Scared? And that's what Liam shouted at it. As Liam unsheathed all 4 of his swords, the nearby spiders lurched at him from all 4 directions. Poison shot at him from a distance, while the red fangs swung their claws with all their might at him. Above him. Below him. Too slow. Shying. Spider corpses fell and curled up. Black blood colored the air. A foul stench accompanied it. Followed by a thrilling smile. Chapter 448 Spider-Man. It went without saying that rank 1 creatures were nothing in Liam's eyes. Neither were rank 2 or rank 3s. Only rank 4 creatures could pose somewhat of a threat. Who was he kidding? Not even rank 4 beasts could do anything. Not unless they outnumbered him 1 to 1,000. But then again, Liam could just teleport to safety. So, not even an enormous swarm of rank 4 beasts could threaten his life seriously. Not unless they had super speed of some kind that could nullify his shadow blink. Making another arc with his swords, crushing, ripping, slicing another wave of red fangs, Liam abruptly stored his swords back into his ring. Just as fast, he rushed at the spiders' corpses, forcing them into his own body. He was using admit. Liam's body naturally allowed the clawed limbs and viscera from the spiders to enter through skin. He was like a sponge. A filter. All their black blood, disgusting guts, and hardened pieces of crimson armor flowed into his body. Liam felt his blood contents rise again. Using so many shadow blinks back to back was tiring. However, the blood wasn't purified and converted into his own. Unlike consuming humans, drinking the blood of a magical beast or other race didn't result in replenishing ichor. Instead, it was simply stored until Liam decided to do something with it. The more black blood and spider corpses Liam absorbed, the more he realized there was something strange going on. A strange process. Instinctively, precise knowledge about the red fang spider's anatomy entered his head. His triumvirate body, paired with his blood, was studying the spider's composition. As it did so, it felt like an invisible percentage bar was rising higher and higher. A few moments later, it hit a strict threshold, and his triumvirate body had completed its scan. Instinctively, Liam felt as though he'd unlocked a different form he could slip into. He could turn into a spider himself. Liam's shifter abilities had been enhanced when Liam's blood had reached a zenith level. Even before, he could take the properties of other magical beasts. Not their cores, obviously, nor their inherent abilities. However, back then, he could only take some of their defenses or physical powers. They were separate identities within the same body. Like having a mechanical arm as a prosthetic, despite the rest of the body consisting of flesh and bone. It could still have the functions of a hand. It could grab, push and pull. But it could never be the same as a real arm. It was more of a substitute, not a replacement. But now, Liam's entire body could become one with the mechanical arm. His physical strength as an Ashura wouldn't go anywhere either. One had to remember that although the exterior of Liam's body was made out of a shifter, the interior was still Ashuran. Through the usage of his rank 4 blood, the incredibly rigid muscles of his Ashuran side could change shape and texture. No reason to delay it then, Liam thought with a slight smile. The waves of spiders slowly lurched backwards as they sensed danger. Liam contemplated whether or not to declare a cringy catchphrase as he transformed, but decided against it. Liam's skin and body slowly cracked, changing color, texture and size. His quad arms and human legs twisted and turned, shredding the clothes on his back. His form slowly became thinner. His skin turned a shade of dark crimson, gaining a hardened consistency that of stone. Liam's torso turned flat and streamlined, turning into a cephalothorax. His lower body expanded like a balloon, becoming an abdomen. Thin and wide limbs emerged from his cephalothorax and abdomen. 2 red fangs burst from his mouth. 8 beady black eyes fluttered open from his front. Silence. Becoming a spider was strange. Liam's perspective was parallel to the ground. And he had several perspectives, as though he was looking through cracked glass. One of his eyes was brighter than the rest. It was the king's eye, with a slit-like shape and miniature size. Each of his irises twirled in different directions. His pearl and core were in between his thorax and core, nicely protected and fortified. The 2 red fangs emerging from his gruesome maw had a vein of poison that led to its tip. The source of the poison were 2 glands located in where Liam's shoulders were supposed to be. At the same time, he felt nimble. Lethal. Hungry for blood. Maybe that was just a side effect of turning into a predatorial beast. His abdomen was filled with red silk, made from Liam's own blood. In fact, he could form sanguine strings from them. Although the red fangs were fire elementals, since their strings could catch fire, Liam didn't gain their powers. All he had was their form, and their bodily functions. That was it. Despite that, he wasn't uncomfortable in the least. He didn't feel like a monster. He didn't feel like a human. He didn't feel like a demon. I'm a Spider-Man. Meanwhile, the spiders watching were visibly stunned. They had no facial expressions. But they were screeching violently earlier, and now they were abruptly quiet. If they were to have a human-shaped face, it'd be one of pure confusion mixed with shock. Nothing to see here, folks, Liam said in his spider form. N.O-V-E-L-B/1-N. His voice was unpleasant and sounded more like a hiss due to having no tongue. Don't mind me. Just another spider. Silence. Although initially confused, the spiders realized that this was not a member of their species. Thus, they screeched in anger and encircled him. Worth a try, Liam thought with an inward shrug. The time to play was over. Shrouded with shadow, Liam lurched into the crowd of spiders with a swiftness and speed he didn't have before. In terms of size, he was still human-shaped. But his streamlined and narrow body gave him more versatility in terms of movement. PKSH. His abdomen shot out a streak of silk, which directly shot inside a rank 4 red fong's thorax, killing it instantly. Liam felt the rank 5 creature's gaze burning into his back. It was getting impatient. I wonder how long I have until he comes out. Chapter 449. Fine. Rank 5 zeniths were very proud creatures. The magical beasts and humans alike. All their base qualities, like what they liked, enjoyed, disdained and found pleasurable, was multiplied as they reached the higher ranks. And that meant that, for something that wasn't equal to its level, the rank 5 red fong didn't deem Liam worthy enough to face. Contrary to popular belief, spiders were actually quite pragmatic, not thrill-seeking hunters. Well, with the exception of some species. They were cold-blooded creatures that fed only when necessary, secluded themselves in uninhabitable zones, and didn't even value kinship. Like the ones Liam was ripping apart and had become. Am I unworthy in your eyes? Liam thought to the spider, strangely serious. You want me to come to you? That's exactly what the spider wanted him to do. If Liam walked into that cave, he'd be dealt with instantly. Pragmatic as they were, spiders didn't accept disrespect like every other animal. Not even a rank one would be spared. Rarely did they leave their caves for an attack on its pack, which could more or less take care of itself. Liam wanted to test that out. I'll use your fangs to pick my teeth, Liam shouted at the towering mountain, but there was no response. A moment later, Liam appeared next to a massive rank 4 red fong. The creature instantly whipped around with its whole body. They were fast. A scythe-like claw aimed to rip Liam in half. But Liam was faster. The king's eye felt everything in slow motion. And spirit sight gave him access to the spider's weak spots. Through his special vision, he could see how their cores were lodged in between their thorax and abdomen. However, the cores also fueled their abdomens and other areas of strength. Since the silk they produced was combustible, it was obvious their fire element came from their cores. For other magical beasts, even if their cores were shattered, they could still continue fighting with their physicality. However, the same couldn't be said for spiders. Their bodies were weak. Their strongest points were their fangs, but the poison glands depended on their cores. That just left them with 2 pointy spikes emerging from their mouths. It was pointless. Despite their obsidian armor, they still had visible weak points. Novel B.1n. All they had was immense speed. In a swift, fluid motion, Liam used his spidery limbs to twirl around the spider's swipe. The spider shot a condensed mouthful of black poison at him. Liam dodged to the side with ease, but to evade, required him to move his entire body. He wasn't used to that. It was like losing the ability to creak one's neck to look to the side. A bit of poison shot past one of his spidery limbs, causing it to sizzle like cooked meat. A moment later, it melted off. Unfazed, Liam reformed it with his blood. But something was amiss. Instead of being replaced with the spider's dark red armor, it was replaced by a patch of human skin. It looked off-putting and out of place. But just then, as he saw the scythe growing closer and closer, Liam's mind raced to find out why this was the case. And it didn't take him long to find out why. What melted off was the spider's flesh, which Liam had taken over through the usage of admit. It wasn't his own. For the same reason, Liam couldn't actually just conjure more of the spider's anatomy. He had a limited reserve of the spider's biological mass. To reform it clearly, he'd have to absorb more of the spider's flesh. But admit was actually on a cooldown of sorts, and Liam felt that it was much, much longer than before. Damn opposition. Just as the scythe was about to give a kiss, Liam used his limbs to propel himself over the red fong's thorax. Then, he sank both his fangs into the red fong's hardened chitin. Just where the abdomen met the thorax. The red fong shrieked in pain as its core was slowly liquidated. But a moment later, a cocoon of crimson strings surrounded Liam. True to their pragmatic and cold nature, they had included their fellow spider within the cocoon. Liam knew they were creating a cocoon around him the entire time. But he didn't mind. What was the worst that could happen? A second later, the cocoon instantly burst with fire. Everything inside had been filled with blazing flames. Shh. Liam felt as though he was inside the sun. Whiteness filled his vision, and fire screamed in his ears. It was then that Liam realized, taking the form of another creature, also meant taking their weaknesses. He was burning alive. Although the red fangs were fire elementals, their weakness was, surprisingly, fire. But they couldn't harm themselves with it. But, didn't Liam have the same form as the spiders? He did. But was he an actual spider? Did he even have the same element? No, he didn't. And thus, he was slowly being melted alive. Despite that, Liam could still think clearly. This is fine. It was not fine. He was gonna die. Boom. There was a massive explosion where the cocoon of fire had formed. But it wasn't the result of fire or any particular spell. It was chaos. All the flames had dissipated instantly, revealing a grim and ugly scene. Liam was no longer a spider. He had reverted back into a human, if one could even call him that, since all of the biomass he had stored had evaporated. But the time for play was over. Within his sea of consciousness, Liam's mental waves surged violently. They were pouring into the slash on his golden mental sphere. Hone activated, and it was like the world stopped. Just 0.03 seconds passed. Liam used Shadow Blink to teleport around the towering mountain 5 times in quick succession, eventually returning him back to his original position. Each time, he used his destructive Chaos World spell on the spider-infested landscape. 1 second passed. Boom. 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 5 thunderous booms echoed through the air back to back. Thousands of red fangs died almost instantly, seeing just a quick flash of red energy before death. At the same time, honed slashes of darkness and barrages of blood wiped out hordes that managed to survive. Just like that, 75% of a rank 5 death zone had been wiped out. 1 second. But Liam looked like a husk. A lot of his blood was used in the teleportation. But a moment later, a Zenith's corpse appeared in his hand, and he bit into it, slightly replenishing his health. Liam looked at the mountain in the center. He smiled. He didn't have to go to the rank 5 spider. The spider was coming to him. Chapter 450 Dancing in the Moonlight. There was a rapid clicking noise as the rank 5 red fang took its time leaving the web-infested gorge. The first thing Liam saw poking through the entrance was its freakishly long limbs. There were 2. Then 4. End.He. Then 8. Each one of them was the length of a 6-story tall building. Thousands of little spikes covered them. In reality, they were just hairs. But obviously, they were not normal. The quill-like hairs were excreting some sort of slimy black liquid. Poison, probably. Even from that distance, Liam could smell the spider's stench, causing his nose to sting. It smelled absolutely horrible. Like fermented corpses left out to rot. What slowly emerged into view next were the 2 dark red fangs. They were freaking massive. Like smooth, shimmering tusks, they were curved inward, dripping with the same black poison. Then, the spider's full form came into view. It was huge. Massive, even. Colossal, if one dared to say. But it was still smaller than the average rank 5 magical beast. Its thorax was streamlined and narrow, adorned with tiny little red hairs. It had 12 button-like eyes, clustered together on the front of its face, right above the 2 fangs. Its long joints grabbed the entrance of the mountain crevice. Like some ancient evil that slowly escaped its enclosure. Wrapping its limbs around the tower, the spider crawled over it, dominating most of the mountain's surface with just its body. As it did so, Liam saw the back of the red fang's thorax. What he saw was just a little terrifying. Beside the macabre artistry on its hardened back, all kinds of skulls were neatly stuck to the spider's oval abdomen. They were plastered onto its body through a thin thread of crimson silk. One could think they were an armor of some kind. But Liam knew they were not. They were trophies. The spider smoothly spiraled around the mountain, producing a chattering noise as the skulls clicked against each other. One could feel a sense of unease from the scene. Seeing a spider crawl up a wall was scary. Seeing a spider crawl up a mountain and make it look like an anthill was something else. Eventually, the spider circled the peak, towering over it like an eagle. Then, it looked at Liam with a quiet, blank stare. Liam looked back with a similar gaze. Silence. Who was the prey, here? Who was the predator? To anyone else, it may seem obvious. But to some, they could argue it was ambiguous. After all, Liam wiped out 75% of the colony in roughly a second. What normal person could do that? Of course, the rank 5 Red Fang could accomplish that if given the chance. More or less. But could a rank 5 really be compared to its lower-ranked counterparts? The fact that Liam was even considered for a comparison was mind-boggling. But speculation was speculation. Just opinions without fact. Liam unsheathed his swords, his quad arms growing empowered with transfiguration. Just then, he activated spirit sight. Liam's vision turned the spider into a silhouette. But its vague insides were visible for him to see. Although the spider had a rank 5 body, it wasn't as dense and powerful as a lion's thick skin or a dragon's rigid scales. Speed and defense did not go hand in hand. Its core was in the same place, between the thorax and abdomen. However, poisonous hairs covered its entire body, protecting it heavily. Liam smiled coldly. I wonder if a few hairs could protect you from my void. There were also poisonous glands above the spider's head, which Liam had to be careful around. Don't be shy now, Liam shouted at the spider. I'll give you first strike. There was no response. Just a dead, sinister stare. Quietly, a tentacle on Liam's back transformed into a 5th hand. From its fingertips, crimson threads softly flowed and danced across the ground, weaving an intricate web. If the silence was to last a long time, the least Liam could do was prepare for it. A moment later, a 6th and 7th hand also emerged from his back. But they were just hands without the arm. On one of the hands, a tiny but violent mass of chaos churned. On the other, a soft and gentle black hole. For several moments, the spider didn't do anything. Then, slowly, the spider's limbs raised into the air, shaking left and right, curling up and down. Liam furrowed his brows with a little bit of shock. Is it dancing? Just then, Liam realized that this must be a ritualistic dance of some kind. Spiders had that sort of thing. To mate with each other, they used dancing to seduce the opposite species. But what the heck was this supposed to be? Liam was no breeding partner, damn it. A moment later, Liam raised his swords in the air, imitating the same dance as the spiders. Dancing in the moonlight, Liam said in a melodious tone, then shook his head. Never thought I'd have a dance-off with a spider, but here we are. Just then, the spider strangely stopped. Confused, Liam stopped too. The atmosphere turned tense. Slowly, the spider lowered its limbs and dug its claws into the mountain below. Oh, Liam thought, realizing something. That wasn't a dance meant for a partner. Silence. It was a death dance. With absolute silence, the spider lurched out from the mountain faster than a wraith, causing bits of the tower to break off. For something that was longer, bigger than 9 meters, the speed it possessed could be called insane. A distance of 400 meters was rapidly closing in the blink of an eye. Even Liam was surprised, but only for 0.08 seconds. He used Shadow Blink. He had to. Otherwise, the 2 red fangs, which were actually retractable, would have scissored him in half. As he teleported a short distance away, the spider landed upon the strings Liam wove a moment prior. On Liam's command, the strings exploded outward, shooting into the spider's underbelly. Clink! There was a clunking noise. The strings didn't do a damn thing. Chapter 451 Minor Threat. The sanguine strings didn't go through the spider's chitin. It wasn't even a particularly hardened section of its body either. But Liam had expected as much. He wanted to see how rigid and powerful the spider's armor really was. And now he had his answer. But that wasn't the terrifying part. Just as Liam used Shadow Blink once more, the Red Fang's entire body creaked towards that direction, before he actually teleported there. It was the equivalent of someone guessing what you were going to say, before you thought of saying it. The spider could use its spider sense to find out where Liam's shadows were heading. And its reaction time was unnaturally fast. Liam felt the hairs on his skin rise. Challenging a rank 5 creature was a little cocky of him. It was clear who the predator and the prey was. There was no more ambiguity left. But Liam didn't relent. Since he was only teleporting short distances, only small percentages of his blood were being used. Roughly 6% was used for a distance of 180 meters, which was far better than the previous 10%. Just as the shadow blink was completed, the spider grew bigger and bigger in Liam's vision. Again. Liam sent a quick barrage of honed darkness at the spider's eyes and limbs. The spider blocked them instantly using a curved claw at the tip of one of its limbs. Liam had to use Shadow Blink once more. A little further this time. 230 meters. It took 9% of Liam's blood, for a total of 15% of his ichor being depleted. Liam took out the Zenith's corpse again and took a large bite, before storing it again. Liam didn't take a bite from his mouth. He literally formed a mouth from his hand, then swallowed it through that. But in a fraction of a second, the spider was on him again. Even faster than before. Liam groaned in annoyance. The spider slowly took up more and more of his vision. Its disgusting mouth was opened wide, dribbling with saliva, while its fangs extended and intended to snap him in half. Whoosh! Just then, Liam threw a crystallized coin of blood in the air. The spider was an inch away from slicing him into pieces. Just then, Liam used Shadow Blink. Except, he wasn't on the ground. He had teleported above. Obviously, the reason Liam threw the coin upwards was to teleport to the shadow it cast. Shadow Blink was restricted to, well, shadows. Air didn't cast any, and Liam couldn't materialize mid-air. Thus, using a medium, like the coin in this case, gave him the indirect ability to do so. Another 6% of his ichor was depleted. 21% of his blood was gone. And, well, now he was flying. And plunging. And swinging all 4 swords with as much darkness as he could muster. Shing. 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 The red fang raised its body to the sky, giving Liam another dead look as honed slashes, needles, were raining down upon it. Time slowed. Suddenly, the hairs on the red fang's narrow body subtly twitched. Liam smiled like he expected that. He saw that coming from a mile away. He wasn't an idiot. Flying in the air left him open to thousands of different attacks. But by now, the spider knew that Liam could teleport. That's why it was going to shoot its hairs at him. But in reality, the spider's attention was on where Liam would teleport next. That's how smart these creatures were. They were able to adapt to the battle at hand. In fact, the spider was actually weaving its crimson threads all over the landscape. Using spirit sight, Liam could see red hair-thin lines streaking across the entire earth. And he knew exactly what those threads could do to him. If he stepped foot on them, they'd trigger, explode, and kill him instantly. In fact, most strings were already woven before Liam arrived, barely visible even to the keenest eye. But these weren't the same as the new threads the spider was forming. If Liam didn't have the king's eye, or his spirit sight, he would have already been ensnared like a trapped fly. But, why hadn't the spider used them till now? It was for a very, very simple reason. What kind of professional hunter uses an RPG to kill a rabbit? No matter how fast, annoying or smart the bunny was, no one used explosives to deal with a minor threat. That's what Liam was to the rank 5 beast. A minor threat. An annoying bunny. Smiling, Liam dared it to think that after what was going to happen next. Thousands of little streaks shot at the sky, like a volley of arrows aimed at heaven. Similarly, Liam's flurry of attacks rained down at the earth, at a slightly slower speed. The two sides clashed. KKKKRSSSHHHH. The result was one-sided. The rank 5's hair attacks absolutely shredded the slashes that Liam shot at it. No sharpness, technique, or speed could overwhelm that sheer power. But Liam used Shadow Blink one last time. 8% of his blood was used. A total of 29%. But one had to remember that Liam teleported several times back to back in order to kill most of the Red Fang colony. In reality, there was just 20% of his blood left. Thus, this was the last teleport that Liam would do. Abruptly, the spider leapt straight above the air as strongly as it could. Liam had teleported beneath it. The spider felt an eerie danger radiating from underneath itself. It was in danger. Finally, void was complete. But the hardened chitin was hindering its path. Thankfully, Liam had a skill he'd been itching to use. And the space created by the spider leaping into the air gave him enough space to use it relatively safely. SHRKH. Using transfiguration, Liam severed off a lump of his flesh and hurled it at the point between the spider's thorax and abdomen. Then, he used expel. Boom. It was louder than a thunderclap, and just as fast. The spider recoiled as a shockwave echoed through its entire body. A subtle smile formed on Liam's face. There was barely any damage, except a tiny little dent on its underside. Then, there was a spherical mass of purple light shooting straight at the spider's core. Nov, LB1N. What happened immediately after made Liam curse in frustration and pain. Chapter 452 Cocoon. All of Liam's focus had been honed for this precise moment. Forming a massive void took quite some time, and it was difficult to maintain the process until it finally concluded. But it finally did. And Liam shot it forward. The flash of purple light caused the shadows to dance. It was closing in on the core. It was about to dig through. Just a few centimeters more. What happened next was just stupid. So stupid. In one quick movement, the spider just dodged mid-air. In reality, it had just shot out a streak of silk from the tip of its abdomen, then yanked itself towards it. The sphere of void missed narrowly. It passed through the air, consuming a patch of reality. SHHHHH. Then puffing out and causing air to shriek as it repaired itself. At the same exact time, hairs shot out from all over its body like stray shrapnel. It was too fast. Even for Liam. He sank into the shadows in the nick of time, covering himself with his blood demon armor. But a stray hair shot into his tight just then before his armor fully formed. The hair in question was the size of an adult armor. Its tip was sharp, and it was dripping with poison. As it entered his body, Liam accepted the pain it gave him with open arms, despite his body spasming uncontrollably. In the span of just a few seconds, Liam's entire right thigh was gone. It sizzled out of existence, and continued to do so from both sides. It was as though Liam had become a burning piece of paper. Similarly, the rest of his leg was turned to ash, and so was his right hip. Instead of blood dripping from him, most of his flesh had turned to ash. The fire-like poison wanted to spread even further. But using transfiguration, Liam stopped it from doing so. The pain was unimaginable. Even though his right hip and leg were gone, it was as though he could still feel them burning. So this is what it feels like to get hit by a rank 5, Liam thought calmly. It's almost enjoyable. But it really wasn't. It made him realize how lucky he was to have protection during the war between the dual empire. And it also made him realize that he wasn't at the level to challenge a rank 5 creature. Using the same string it yanked itself on, the Red Fang propelled itself onto the peak of the mountain once again. Then, it looked at Liam with the same dead eyes. Except, if Liam's vision didn't fail him, he could sense anger from it. That made him smile. Despite obviously being in a worse situation, the spider was pissed, and Liam was smiling. That was a victory in his book. A second later, Liam was about to completely reform his leg. But he stopped himself. Looking at the spider again. Did Liam even inflict any significant damage to it? Any damage at all? Just a tiny dent. And a few scratches where his slashes of darkness had landed upon. But then, something happened right after that made Liam realize the death dance was not over. The red fawn bent its abdomen and positioned it to the moon, then shot out a long, powerful stream of red silk. Shh! It was like a geyser, except with pure silk acting as a pillar to the moon. As it reached its zenith, the stream of silk slowly spread outward. Now, it was like a volcanic eruption. As it left the beam of silk, Liam quickly realized something. That was a web of silk. And it was encircling the entire rank 5 danger zone. Liam admired the view for a few seconds. It was beautiful. The web of silk was patterned intricately, and as it continued spreading, the gaps slowly filled themselves. This was a cocoon. And it was breathtaking if one could look past its real purpose. You've gone past using an RPG to kill a rabbit, Liam thought to the red fawn. You're using an entire nuke. Sheathing his swords, Liam stood on one leg and heaved a sigh. In a few more moments, the cocoon would be complete, and he'd be incinerated along with everything inside. That's my cue to leave, Liam shouted at the spider. It was fun dancing with you, friend. There was no response. Flipping the spider off, Liam used Shadow Blink just as the cocoon was completed. The world changed in his vision once more, transporting him out of the rank 5 danger zone and into a swath of red trees. A 500-meter shadow blink. 98% of his blood was used in total. Just 2% remained. Now, Liam looked anorexic almost. But he was just outside of the cocoon's range. He turned around, looking at the massive cocoon that now dominated the red fawn's territory. Liam heard a faint screech of frustration echo from the inside. Novel B.1N. Liam smiled broadly, still standing on just one leg. Eat your heart out. Liam lingered there for a few more minutes. I'll give you another visit soon, my 8-legged friend, Liam said. Expect me. Soon enough, Liam skedaddled back to the temple's quarters. On the way there, he killed a few rank 4 magical beasts to feast upon. Regular zenith beasts didn't require much effort to kill anymore. A burst of sanguine strings were enough to make them bleed out and die. Through eating them, his anatomy was more or less back to normal. Since his blood purity was higher, it would require a lot more than just a few rank 4 corpses to bring him back to full health. Liam entered his office, and his shadow clone was, strangely docile, drawing something on a piece of paper. Liam was initially worried his shadow clone might have been up to something. But this was even stranger. Approaching the clone, Liam looked over his shoulder to see what he was drawing, and instantly, he shook his head with a tired sigh. Why are all my clones like this? The clone gave a lecherous smile, but said nothing. A moment later, Liam made the clone explode. Boom! And shredded this drawing with his darkness. Liam shook his head. Now was not the time for foolishness. It was finally time to put some improvements on his blood weaving. Chapter 453 Cotton. Liam hadn't inscribed anything ever since his mind had advanced to a zenith level. But now, both his blood and mind were zeniths. Something had to be different, right? Blood weaving had served Liam incredibly well throughout the years. Oftentimes, it had sharpened the sword that saved Liam's life. In fact, it was the reason why Liam had lived for as long as he did. How did Liam even get his blood manipulation abilities? Through the blood nails that Revel had inscribed for him. Sure, he had eaten and purified the nexus of a vampire by himself, but the nails were what allowed him to do so. Not only that, but blood weaving was the reason he had so many techniques at his disposal. It was also the reason why he had attained a rank 4 mind relatively quickly despite the law of balance working heavily against him. In short, Liam couldn't live without blood weaving. That being said, it wasn't without its own little flaws. Blood weaving gave Liam the ability to produce enhancements, techniques, and spells. It was amazing. But it was a little too broad in some aspects, and the process of inscribing was very long. Although Liam could enhance an item's speed, durability, or power, he couldn't make unique spells. As in, he couldn't invent a particularly awesome sword with special properties. Say, a sword that could grow alongside him. Or a technique that could advance with his sea of consciousness. But didn't all of this depend on comprehension? Mostly, yes. However, ever since Liam advanced, he could spot a few glaring issues in his inscription method. Blood weaving was made with a rank 3 mental sphere. Revel specifically. A mortal ranked cultivator could not possibly understand the mind of a zenith. Now that Liam had become a zenith, his blood weaving seemed like an aged, broken-down car that somehow managed to work. And now, it was holding Liam back. Liam ran a hand through his short hair. Somehow, Revel always seems to have the last laugh. Even after death. There was a moment of silence as Liam contemplated the best way to improve his blood weaving. In a sense, it's similar to cotton, Liam thought strangely. The further the cotton is spread out, the weaker, less useful it gets. Should my goal be to gather all the cotton in one place or something? Maybe, inscribe everything in the form of one character? That actually sounded pretty plausible. Except, Liam was essentially renewing the base form of blood weaving itself. Of course, inscription methods had their own moments of evolution. Sort of like how a center of power advances, inscription methods went through a similar upgrading phase. Till now, everything Liam had ever inscribed had been with the usage of chained sentences and words, not just one character. Why would he make his life more difficult by changing his method so drastically? Having all the meanings stacked into one character sounds incredibly powerful. But it gives more sheer power than it does versatility and speciality. I can't imagine what a forged abyssal needle could do paired with such a thing. Maybe it'd destroy a large-size state. But that's not what I'm looking for. I already have the best possible explosion device. Chaos. Liam pursed his lips. What, then? Turn the cotton into hundreds of thousands of individual threads? Liam's inscription teacher in the academy, Richard Nesht, had a similar inscription method. He could use his threads of hair to concoct an amazing instantaneous enhancement. What would hundreds of thousands of characters do for Liam's inscriptions? Same issue. It would give me more versatility and range, but it would take its power. That was also bad. Too much on one side, too much on the other. It had to be done carefully. I should just practice it at least once before I figure something out, Liam thought. Maybe there's a different process or something involved. Droplets of blood converged onto his forefinger, growing to the size of a fist. Liam was no longer scared of pain. If he had to suffer, so be it. And it helped that his mind was in the zenith ranks, capable of withstanding his ichor. A moment later, Liam put the finger to his forehead, allowing it to seep through. Eventually, it made contact with his mental barrier. Nelf/LB/in. There was a pang of ethereal pain, but it was perfectly bearable. At least, by the Liam Roy standard. Slowly, the blood poured through the sun-like barrier. Eventually, it flowed into the sea of consciousness, humming in its center. There was a steady, pulsing pressure tugging at his mind. He could still think clearly, but his thoughts were strangely delayed. Just a tiny amount. The pressure it emits pushes down my mental waves, Liam thought as pulses of pain shot through his brain. That's why my thoughts form slightly slower. But as soon as it entered Liam's mind, Liam realized something, causing his eyes to widen. His blood had special properties. It could transform. It could mimic. It could absorb. It could expel. And do much more. Why was Liam trying to change his blood around his blood weaving, when he could change his blood weaving around his blood? So stupid. It all made sense now. I don't need to spread the cotton, or cut it, or condense it in any way. Liam smiled broadly. I can pour liquid over it, and it'll absorb it all the same. With his plan set in motion, Liam's mind raced to fix the lesser mistakes of the blood-weaving method first. I'll let the gob of blood cook in my head, Liam thought seriously. When it finishes, I'll work on my swords, next. Just 2.5 weeks remained for the Important People Convention. That's how long Liam had to renew his blood weaving. But he wasn't worried. After all, he could just hone in the parts he had trouble fixing. And like so, time gradually passed, and the Important People Convention grew nearer and nearer. Chapter 454 Ancient, Cursed, Forbidden. Just a week remained for the Important People's Convention. Liam was working double time. He had momentarily set aside his cultivation in hopes of gaining enough time to fix blood weaving's little flaws. Firstly, the overall cooking time had been improved. Unlike before, it would take roughly 4 to 5 hours for a clot of blood to fully cook. Now, it took much longer. 7 hours. But that was actually an improvement. In reality, it would have taken 8 or 9. But Liam had added new and improved meanings, rerouted the links, and obviously used his rank 4 blood as ink. Both the mind and blood had improved, after all, and even an hour or 2 to save was a big deal. This obviously meant that Liam's inscription rate would be less. But they'd be much more powerful. If there was more time, Liam would have definitely made improvements to his primordial forging method, too. There was no doubt in his mind that it was just as outdated and worn down as blood weaving. But there wasn't much to do in a week. There was already enough on his plate. After several days, he was finally done with it. Liam raised the inscription method to the air. Then previous parchment had been with him for as long as he could remember. He always changed it between rings, and its surface had been aged visibly. But to Liam, it didn't feel like that long. It felt like yesterday. He renewed the parchment paper and replaced it with a thin slab of crystallized blood. Of his own, of course. The result was quite amazing. Liam smiled at his work of art. A moment later, he took out his odachi. Then, Liam put a finger on his forehead. As he slowly pulled the finger away, the long glob of blood followed it like a bright red thread. When stretched, it looked like a laser. That was how bright it was. The meanings Liam had put within the fist-sized mass of blood gave it that quality. What meanings did Liam put into it? A very simple function. But it was a surprise. Liam took out his odachi. Would it be better on this? Liam thought. Yeah. Probably. First, he stripped off its inscriptions. The black blade let out a yelp of shock. Relax, Liam said. I'll fix them. With the black blade pointed to the ceiling, Liam began writing the links down on its peerless edge. Liam didn't change his base inscription technique. Except, his hand was a lot more fast-moving, as though he was writing in the air itself. A few hours passed. By the time Liam was done, the sword looked more like an exquisite piece of art than it did a lethal weapon. The characters written in the vampiric language looked more fluid and stylish. It was the difference between practicing calligraphy for 1 year and practicing calligraphy for 20 years. But, what did the inscriptions do? Liam's nails flared with wisps of brown and black corruption. Next, he lowered the sword and slowly, as though lighting up a cigarette, let his fingers touch the blood writings. WHSH. Instantly, the characters lit up one after the other, the blood gaining the same hue as Liam's corruption. NOV/E/L-.B.I.N. A creepy, ear-to-ear smile formed on Liam's face. That was the power of his blood. What the inscriptions did was simply spread his corruption evenly across his entire sword. Liam outstretched the sword and slashed the air. Shing! A slash of darkness shot from the sword's edge. Except, the darkness had a strange hue to it. A little bit of brown had been mixed with it. A bit of corruption. Shing! The slash landed on the wall, forming a wide, diagonal cut across its surface. However, the inscriptions on the odachi were just a little dimmer. Despite that, Liam smiled. As long as I fill it up now and again, it'd last for several hours. At least a full fight. Satisfaction. That was the emotion Liam felt. You changed something again, the Black Blade said with a strange voice. I feel like I've just been dipped in death. Silence. Well, Liam said. You're stronger. All that matters. What about us? The Duskblade said. Do you bear gifts? The Breaker Blade was silent, but it obviously wanted something too. Liam didn't respond. Instead, he gathered another fistful of blood, then let it cook for the rest of the day. 7 hours passed. After performing the same meanings, with minor differences and deviations, Liam applied them to the Duskblades next. Then, through the same process of lighting it up, Liam added a touch of chaos to it. Zhhhr. It buzzed with chaos. The Duskblades laughed gutturally. Now, not only could it wield fire, it could also harness and fight with chaos. But, didn't it already fight with chaos? It did. However, that was clearly different. Now, there was no need for Liam to strain his core due to his demanding sword style. He could use his chaos spells and his chaotic sword style. That being said, these qualities weren't actually ingrained in the weapons themselves. Only primordial forging could do that. Blood weaving, on the other hand, gave him the ability to switch these qualities on and off, without actually using his corruption or chaos reserves constantly. Besides, Liam didn't want to showcase his pearl abilities in every fight. Up next was the Breaker Blade. As the biggest sword in Liam's arsenal, it was also the strongest due to its shape. Chaos and corruption didn't fit well with it. Instead, his shadows were perfect for it. And Liam's shadow reserves were, well, undepletable. Another 7 hours passed. Followed by another. And another. The Breaker Blade was freaking massive. It had to be inscribed several times due to how tall it was. But it was done. And it looked menacingly beautiful. All three swords had their own uniqueness. The Odachi looked like an ancient treasure. The Dusks looked like a cursed treasure. And the Breaker looked like a forbidden treasure. Liam's shadows flowed into the Titanic sword's inscriptions. Liam raised the sword, then dropped it. Instead of crashing against the ground, it had entered the sea of darkness. Then, on Liam's command, the sword swam through the ground. The Breaker's biggest flaw was maneuverability. Not anymore. Chapter 455 Suit. Giving the Breaker access to Liam's shadows, Liam could make it swim beneath the sea of darkness. He could control it. As it swam through Liam's office, it caused the shadows to ripple, as though a shark was lurking beneath its depths. A moment later, Liam made a rising gesture with his hand. Whoosh! In an instant, the sword shot out of the sea of darkness. A little too fast. Boom! It burst through his ceiling. A massive hole was formed there, and rubble flew everywhere. So much for leaving rooms in one piece. Except, Liam knew that would happen. He could have easily made the Breaker Blade merge with the ceiling and continue swimming from there. He just wanted to see how fast he could move it. As the Breaker Blade continued flying in the air, Liam outstretched a hand to the side. It was plunging back to the ground. As it slowly came back to the earth, it shot back to his hand, like his palm had become a magnet. Chk. Shing. A moment later, his fingers wrapped around its hilt, and he swung through the air. Whoosh! The air caused by the swing caused a violent breeze to shoot through Liam's room. Not only did Liam add those inscriptions on his swords, he also improved the base enhancements. Good enough, Liam thought with a nod. Once my core arrives at the 4th rank, I'll finally get to work with primordial forging. I think it's about time I make something entirely new. Unique. Something the world would be better without, though. Liam pursed his lips. Just 5 more days until the Important People Convention. Until then, Liam was free to do whatever he wanted. Although cultivating until then sounded good, this party was important. The figureheads of the temple were extremely worried for Liam's sake. Evidently, Liam sucked at parties and social gatherings. He avoided literally every celebration that the temple hosted, and rarely spoke to people of his own volition. That wasn't really a problem anymore, as Liam wasn't so short-sighted and tense. Before, he was a tumultuous sea. Too many waves. Too much chaos. All the danger was on the outside. Now, he was a pond. Serene. Calm. Gentle. But beneath the surface, monsters silently awaited their next meal. Requirements for a party. Clothes. Suits? There was no specific dress code. I can go naked if I so please. Liam shook his head. Never mind. Coming off too strong is also bad. Come to think of it, Ucladd had something similar to a suit. He'll probably wear that to the convention. The general also had a similar piece of attire last Liam saw him, with minor differences compared to the suits on Earth. Can't go wrong with that. Suit it was. Liam was about to head to Jargon's place. Tailories, among countless other businesses, thrived within the temple's lands thanks to him. Since he came from a poor background, and since Revel taught him everything he knew, Jargon had a business mindset. He was Liam's economic minister. Just then, Jargon knocked twice on his door. Come in, Liam said, and the door opened. Jargon's gaze first fell on the broken roof and trashed surroundings. Again. Jargon thought and distraught, and Liam could see it in his mental waves. Jargon, Liam called out. Perfect timing. Do you know what a suit is? Jargon paused for a few seconds, then shook his head. No clue, sir. Is it a food of some kind? Clothing, Liam corrected. I'll need a pair for the convention. Jargon's eyes lit up. Was Liam finally taking his responsibilities seriously? Was he? Give me specifics, sir, Jargon said with an enthusiastic tone. I'll make sure it suits your tastes. Jargon smiled, proud of the pun. An oval bin. Liam nodded. Taking out a thin piece of paper, Liam drew a perfect replica of a three-piece suit, paired with a long overcoat. He had to look different to the general and Ucladd. Copying their attire could seem disrespectful. And quite frankly, Liam didn't want to make it seem like he was trying too hard. At the same time, he added a few more modern clothing styles for Jargon to replicate and copy. A reward. Throwing a bone to a loyal hound. Then, he handed the paper to Jargon. Off you go. Jargon smiled broadly and dismissed himself. Liam heaved a long sigh and looked up at the hole in his office ceiling. Who's fixing my roof, though? Unbeknownst to Liam, while Jargon worked on the suit, Jane worked on the perfume, Aki worked on the adornments, which Jax would inscribe. It was obvious to say, but smelling like an unwashed rag used to wipe feces and dirt was not good. Though, Liam smelled like blood most of the time. Of his own and others. Just a day remained for the important people convention. The temple was very excited for Liam's sake, even though they weren't going. Boss, please tell us stories when you're back. And who you meet. And descriptions of how the women loo, shouted a young man, promptly silenced by a group of acolytes. After a while, the elders' jobs were completed. Jargon brought the three-piece suit. The waistcoat was matte black, while the undershirt beneath was a crisp white. Made from the fur of an expensive magical beast, the long overcoat that draped over his shoulders was a smooth, silky black, but its interior was crimson. From a mixture of chemicals and rare herbs, Jane made Liam a perfume that smelled absolutely amazing. Somehow, it made him pleasant to look at. Unbeknownst to Liam, that was done on purpose. Jane was worried no one would approach Liam due to him being dead inside. But with this, at least there was a chance. Aki brought an ornate stopwatch made from black metal, inscribed to look as posh as possible. It was also connected to a golden chain on his breast pocket, giving him easy access to it. There was no special function to it, other than telling the time in a traditional way. Realizing something about his attire, Liam scoffed. I look like a British gangster from the 1800s, Liam thought. Just missing the cap. But finally, he was ready for it. The Important People Convention. Chapter 456 Quartz Dragon. Donning his new clothes, Liam felt a strange urge to fill his lungs with smoke. Except, Liam had never used a drug other than when it helped him cultivate faster. Addiction was not something he struggled with. Other than power, of course. But better not fall into that slippery slope. Just a day remained for the convention, and Liam would be amidst the most powerful people on the planet. How exciting. To Liam, at least. Those who knew Liam were worried sick for him. What if he went back and forth with a powerhouse? What if he offended someone by mistake? What if he made a potential enemy of someone important? What if? What if? One had to remember that, just like these parties could connect and create bonds between countries, individuals, and races, it could very well do the opposite. They were potential death traps that could seal the fates of entire countries. And Liam was excited for it. Right. And that idiot Ryu was daring him to insult the Aquarian Queen while wearing a wizard's hat to the party. Thankfully, before Liam could be fully convinced, the elders gagged him in one of the torture chambers beneath the temple's domain. And as the remaining hours ticked down, nothing out of the ordinary happened. Finally, it was the day of the convention. The sun rose, then slowly fell, casting scarlet rays of light to wash over the endless sea. Standing over a cliff that bordered the Vermilion Ocean, Liam took out his ornate stopwatch and checked the time. The long hand of his watch was not the ticking type. It was the smooth kind that made no noise. And it just passed the 6 p.m. mark. It was time to go. A gentle wind blew past him, fluttering his coat. Strangely enough, his short, corvid black hair was neatly trimmed, combed and styled. With broad, square shoulders and a tall, strong frame, the overcoat and three-piece suit gave him an amazing, eye-catching presence. But beneath those eyes, there was nothing. No soul. Just nicely decorated clothes, a quaint smell and an appearance arranged to be pleasing for the outside eye. That's all there was. No matter what one put on the outside, the inside was ultimately what mattered. In the first place, Liam didn't want to do any of this. If it wouldn't be too much of a hassle, Liam really would just go naked. Liam put the watch back into his waist pocket and looked towards the distance, hearing something flapping. A form slowly grew larger amidst from where the sun was the brightest. A dragon. The mayor of Mount Mayhem didn't specify what form of transportation Liam was allowed to come with. He couldn't fly since he wasn't a zenith, but this was the next best thing. At the same time, Liam's time for arrival was actually much earlier compared to the other guests. Why? Because Liam still had to showcase his powers and abilities. The actual party began at a crisp 7 p.m. Until then, Liam would have a nice chat with Sir Cornelius. Zooming in with the king's eye, Liam had a good look at the dragon that was approaching. That wasn't a water dragon like he was told it would be. It had pointy, crystallized black scales, with a narrow, streamlined frame that made it shoot through air like an arrow made from gems. Each of the black scales sparkled like little black diamonds. Except, its crystal eyes looked like it was made from ruby. Under the sun, it looked absolutely marvelous. Liam raised a brow. "Hope you like it," Darius said with a smile, materializing beside Liam through his shadows. "I wasn't able to get you a gift for the party, but at least I could fix you a ride." Liam recognized the dragon. It was a quartz dragon. A docile darkness elemental dragon that wasn't exactly strong, but extremely rare, swift and expensive. It used pulses of darkness to boost itself mid-air. Sort of like how a jet uses its burners. Even Aquarian royalty coveted such a thing. "Thank you," Liam said. "Looks glorious." The dragon circled above Liam's head, slowly flapping its wings as it descended a few meters away from him. Whoosh! Quartz dragons were extremely fast, but physically weak. Those crystals did nothing defensive-wise. Liam didn't mind it. With his hands still in his pockets, Liam made a wide leap onto the dragon's head, landing with a light step. "We're running late," Liam said to the creature, patting its hardened head. Up we go. As the acolytes and elders waved at him goodbye, the crystal dragon flapped its wings. Boom! And he was soaring through the air at the speed of sound. It took just a few minutes for the island to grow distant in his vision. Evidently, the quartz dragon was faster than a jet, leaving a trail of darkness in the sky. Liam firmed himself on the dragon's back. Then, he took out the golden postcard and paid attention to where the arrow pointed. The sky was slowly dimming. The worldly terrain changed a few times in Liam's vision. A few islands passed him. Pagodas. Archipelagos. Small-sized countries. A few aerial creatures flew past him. Fellow dragons and even an albino wyvern. Air whistled through his ears, but he could still hear just fine. Before long, something appeared way out in the distance. Roughly 5,000 meters away. Surrounding it was nothing but the ocean. Except, the purity of the water was so clear, Liam could see a terrifyingly long distance below the waters. By his estimation, he could see 7,000 meters deep. The amount of ocean life he saw was breathtaking. By no means was this water normal. But the water's beauty paled in comparison to the mountain itself. In reality, it was just a 9-star hotel disguised as a mountain. Even Liam was surprised by just how magnificent the thing looked. All the amenities and buildings he saw looked modern and, almost, futuristic. Chapter 457 Gentlemen. An architectural marvel it was. Liam slowed down his ride to a leisurely speed. He wanted to survey the scene before approaching, and maybe understand what he was seeing. Firstly, the mountain was incredibly tall, shaped like the sharp end of an ice cream cone. Strangely, it floated above the water like a raft, rather than an island. It bobbed up and down like a buoy on the crystalline sea. It could actually traverse through the waters like a yacht. By Earth standards, the cone-shaped mountain would be 400 stories high, while the base was just 600 meters in length. The base was the thickest, and as it ran across the peak, it thinned out. Here and there, beams of light poked holes through the sky, the source of which was the mountain itself. At the foot of the mountain, huge, lush gates made from wood in the shape of a laurel plant allowed for guests to enter the premises. Past the entrances were long, spacious red carpets that led upwards, inside the mountain itself. Mount Mayhem was actually hollow inside. Of course it was. Why not? Ingrained within the surfaces of the mountain itself were lush tapestry, wide panes of crystal glass, and modern, open pavilions. The pavilions were shaped like various flowers, but made through the lens of a minimalist. Roses. Lotus. Lilies and more. There were levels to it. Sort of like a terrace farm, there were flat rings around the mountain. It looked like the perfect resort straight out of fantasy. And that was just the outside of it. Liam couldn't actually see through those panes of crystal glass, not even when zooming in or using spirit sight. It was probably a one-way. Finally, there was the peak of the mount, which housed a plateau 200 meters wide. In the center of that plateau was an ornate mansion which looked like a king's palace, made from gold and adorned with various crystals. Show off. With a name like Sir Cornelius Marrow III, one could tell the man was born with a golden spoon in his mouth. Other than that, there were servants that offered a wide assortment of drinks and luxury food, walking this way and that way. In terms of clothing, they wore the standard butler and maid attire. Except, as Liam looked closer, they had no core. Nor a sea of consciousness. Nor did they have any bodily organs. They were utterly empty inside, despite looking, acting and having human characteristics. Have I met my match? Liam thought. But they looked perfectly alive. It was the same situation with the messenger owl. It had no sea of consciousness, nor any special centers of power. Yet it could speak to him like a regular human being. He'll tell me in a bit, anyways. That being said, Liam spotted a few people that already preceded him by coming early. The gates were being flooded with people. All kinds of beautiful people, wearing lavish, unique attire adorned with jewelry entered in groups. Most were from countries without powerhouses to boast of. Others were clearly from known countries. Liam even spotted a few Aquarian-looking fellows. Celebrities, probably. Though, they didn't seem to have any affiliation with royalty. Excitement, anticipation, and pride permeated the air. The conversations and intermingling began immediately. Liam recognized none of these people. He scoffed. Bunch of no-name losers they were, hoping to meet someone powerful and suckle off their powers. Disgusting. One had to remember that Liam wasn't coming into this party thinking of himself as inferior, or for seeking honor through these people. He was here because there was an opportunity for growth. Nothing more, nothing less. Where's the parking area? Liam thought. Where the heck was his dragon supposed to go? There were a few places that ships and other aerial beasts had gathered, but they were filled to the brim. Granted, the quartz dragon wasn't the largest dragon. Maybe Liam could take it with him? Just then, as Liam grew nearer, the gem palace atop the plateau started glowing with an emerald light, illuminating a holographic path. It was shining upon Liam. It lit the air in front of him like a green carpet. Is he inviting me in? Liam thought. Weirdo. Changing the trajectory on his quartz dragon, Liam made a beeline for the mansion. A few seconds later, he was at its gate. Liam parked his ride to the side of the grand entrance. Then, he jumped off the magical beast. Then, he entered through the front of the stupidly extravagant mansion. Suddenly, he was teleported. It was instant. Liam felt his surroundings change in the blink of an eye. Now, he was in a spacious, cozy, ornate, wooden office. Portraits were hung off the walls. There were bookshelves and furniture to the sides. Right ahead was a desk. Behind it sat a middle-aged man with exquisite features. He had a black gentleman's mustache that swirled at the tips. He was a little overweight. Just a little. Enough for his stomach to bulge through. He wore a white and black tuxedo, with a crisp blue bow tie as the cherry on top. Very gentlemanly. Sir Cornelius Marrow III had ocean blue eyes. He had big lips. A round nose. Puffy cheeks. A double chin. Short brown hair, atop of which was a small top hat. There was a golden monocle on one of his eyes. Despite his otherwise heavy looks, the man looked like the very definition of gentleman. Wait. Wasn't this just the Monopoly guy? NOVE-LB.IN. Liam suppressed his laughter. Mr. Liam, the host exclaimed happily, raising to his feet with a grand gesture. A pleasure to finally put a face to the name. Liam nodded with a slight smile. Likewise. Thank you for the invitation. Oh, Sir Cornelius waved his hands, gesturing for Liam to sit down, and why wouldn't I invite one of the youngest, most talented cultivators on the planet? Chuckling in what sounded like embarrassment, Liam shook his head, taking a seat. You're much too kind. Chapter 458 Drink. Sitting opposite to a rank 6 powerhouse, Liam actually felt quite comfortable. The atmosphere was just perfect. The smell of fresh books, the lighting, the ambient silence. It was as though this setting was handmade and designed just for Liam's sake. Sir Cornelius' aura wasn't intimidating or overbearing, either. In a sense, it was warm, like the uncle Liam never had. It helped that his appearance was so docile and non-threatening. Compared to someone like the general, for example, Cornelius looked harmless. But there was no doubt about it. Sir Cornelius Marrow III was indeed a spectacular host. Wow, it's just like they say, Cornelius said. It stings a tiny bit looking straight into your eyes. Liam smiled lightly. I hope the journey wasn't too long, Cornelius said with a wide smile, showcasing his pearly white teeth. I positioned my island a little closer to all the surrounding countries, but I had to maintain equality between them. Not at all, Liam reassured, smiling lightly. I've got a fast ride myself. Nodding, Cornelius then gave Liam's suit a good, scrutinizing look. "I've never quite seen such attire before, Mr. Royce," Cornelius said, adjusting his monocle. "It's quaint. And stylish, if I do say so myself." A pause. "A talented tailor could get you far in life," Liam said, as if he knew what he was talking about. "You would know." Sir Cornelius nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. Friends always tell me that I've hired too many tailors, but what can I say?" Cornelius added with a conversational voice. "Each suit grants me a new quality I didn't have before." The two exchanged solemn nods of agreement. "Nov. LB1N. "Oh," Cornelius exclaimed suddenly, facepalming. "How rude of me. I haven't even offered you something to drink." Liam raised a hand. "Please. Don't bother. I'm not one to drink in the first place." The mayor shook his head. "You misunderstand, Mr. Liam," Cornelius said in a somewhat serious voice, leaning forward. "These are not alcoholic. They're made from mermaid tears and sun strawberries. And I'm afraid you cannot refuse." Liam didn't know either of those ingredients. "If you insist." A moment later. There was a flash of emerald light. 2 champagne glasses appeared on the host's desk. They fizzed and bubbled, as though they were carbonated. One side of the glass glowed, as though it was a piece of the sun, and the other gushed as though it was a patch of the ocean. A strange duality. "Please," Cornelius said, grabbing one glass as Liam grabbed the other. "Cheers." Clink. The two clinked their glasses together, then gulped down the drinks in one go. As it flowed down Liam's throat, a myriad of flavors made his entire body shiver. It was really, really good. No doubt, the tastiest thing that ever graced his palate, warming his entire body. But it was very, very heavy. It was as though he'd wolfed down a feast that his monstrous stomach couldn't digest in time. Still, it made his muscles tingle in satisfaction, and if he was anyone else, he'd ask for another drink straight away. But he didn't. It was just taste. So what? He wasn't a glutton. Nor a drunk. Cornelius let out a long sigh of refreshment. Seeing Liam's mild reaction, Cornelius smiled lightly and nodded to himself. "Now," the mayor exclaimed, then made a slightly serious face. "Would you mind if I ask you a few questions pertaining to your life?" "Not at all," Liam responded. For the next few minutes, the mayor continued asking Liam a series of questions, starting from his birth, up to his current situation. Liam spoke the truth. There was no reason to lie, really. The powerhouse could easily tell if he was. Liam told him most of the details and kept some to himself. Especially his side goal of finding the Assuras, his revenge against the Royce family, and how he attained most of his powers. Unless the mayor asked him those questions himself, Liam would answer. He also kept his meeting with the opposition a secret. That wasn't getting out, even if Liam was asked. 30 minutes passed. Liam explained everything with concise and clear terms. His entire life story of 29 years was shortened to 30 minutes. At the same time, Liam snuck studying glances at Cornelius' path. Everyone's path was unique to their abilities and strengths. For some individuals, it was clear as day what their paths were. Case in point, the Empress of Fear. Another case in point, the Emperor of Courage. The former radiated a natural sense of primordial fear, while the latter emitted a feeling of protection and warmth to those that looked at him. And yet, Cornelius' path was a little too vague for Liam to truly grasp and understand it. Most of his aura was actually translucent, and his mental waves were invisible. At the end of Liam's story, Cornelius had a bewildered, amazed look on his fat face. "Wow," he said under his breath, subconsciously twisting the end of his mustache. "Have you ever thought about writing a book?" Liam made a snort that sounded like a chuckle. "Not yet. Maybe I will." "And, how are you not dead yet?" the mayor muttered with an aghast voice. "How does everything you do go wrong in some way?" Liam shrugged with a smile. Sorry, that was rude of me, Cornelius said apologetically. I've never heard of a story with so much torture involved. Silence. Can we exchange a demonstration of power now? The mayor said bluntly, a slight smile on his face. I've never been one to beat around the bush, quite frankly. Liam could agree with that. Except, he had a strange question. Hasn't the party started already, though? Liam asked. It's well past 7. The mountain's being filled up with people. Cornelius laughed. They're not expecting a grand speech, are they? As a host, I'll treat my guests like kings so long as they don't believe themselves to be one. Besides, I despise those kinds of talks. I'd rather meet my guests personally than address them like a common crowd. Liam liked Sir Cornelius a little more because of what he said. I'll begin, the mayor said. I wouldn't want you to feel like you've been fleeced. Liam reclined and listened intently. Exchanging demonstrations of power with a rank 6 cultivator would no doubt give him insight on the intricacies of one's path. Chapter 459 Path. I'll be absolutely blunt and say I'm perhaps the weakest powerhouse out of them all, Sir Cornelius said with a wry look. And here's the shocker. Silence. Cornelius paused for dramatic effect. I can't even cultivate through normal means anymore. Silence again. Liam raised his brows in slight surprise. What? How was that even possible? How was that even allowed? What did Cornelius do to have the law of balance imposed so harshly on him? Noticing Liam's surprise, Cornelius laughed, causing his double chin to jiggle a bit. The truth is more boring than you think, Cornelius said. It was actually my own choice. Now, Liam was a little more than surprised. How could one even do that? Liam didn't ask, though. This wasn't an explanation of abilities. It was a demonstration. That's all it was, in reality. In the first place, speaking in depth to others about one's path could affect another's. But that was specific to lower-ranking cultivators, who might get obsessed with a certain power. To zeniths that had a general idea of who they wanted their powers to be, knowing about another person's path could actually be more beneficial. But Liam wasn't inclined to explain his abilities, and neither was the mayor. A few seconds passed in quiet silence. In reality, my cultivation depends on this very mountain. Liam raised his brows. N/O-.VEL/B-I-N. This was even more surprising. Were paths so broad and diverse? How the heck did that even work? Liam hadn't used spirit sight on the mayor, since it might seem a bit rude, and the mayor could probably find out. I actually specialize in formations and inscriptions more than anything, the mayor continued conversationally. I'm sure you've wondered why my butlers and maids don't have any particular power. Liam gave a slow, firm nod. The mayor smirked. They're actually just inscribed puppets, Cornelius said. They're not actually alive. Silence. Liam was genuinely amazed. Did the mayor invent the first robot ever? Well, they lacked the vestigial flesh and metallic frame, but they were formed from the same idea. Not only were they robots, they were also paired with artificial intelligence. The mayor was a little bigger in Liam's eyes, and not just because of his fat stomach and double chin. I would gladly show you a live demonstration of me building one, but they take quite a bit of time, you see. Liam was a little bit disappointed in that. Noticing his expression, the mayor instantly made amends. Don't worry. I'll go a little more in depth to make up for it. Liam hid a smile, limiting himself to a nod. Battle-wise, even a peak rank 5 cultivator could kill me with a bit of effort, the mayor said. That was sad. Despite that, the mayor smirked proudly. But in my own domain? On this mountain? Cornelius smiled broadly. Not even the queen, Ucladd, or the general combined could lay a finger on me. Absolute silence. No wonder they accepted the mayor's invitation. If the mayor spoke the truth, which he definitely did, they had to realize the sheer strength that the mayor possessed. But that power is specific to his domain. Essentially, his defense and offense was absolutely impregnable within Mount Mayhem. Mount Mayhem was one massive superweapon. Except, that superweapon could not fire from a long distance. And the mayor himself was much, much weaker when he wasn't holding it. That was a good thing, though. If it wasn't, Liam was pretty sure the mayor would have ruled the world by now. A choice that the mayor seemed happy with. There was a slight pause. "Oh, and I have absolute control over this place," the mayor said proudly, waving his hand. "It's part of me, after all." Wherever the mayor's hand moved, the room's interior transformed. The bookshelves retracted into the walls, while the flat ceiling expanded, growing out a ruby chandelier shaped like a rose. Pillars burst from the ground and connected to the ceiling. From a wooden office, it quickly turned into a marble hall lit by a rosy light. The mayor smiled again. Liam wasn't too surprised by this ability. From his knowledge, even Ucladd had that ability, since the Pasha's castle had changed forms from the first time he had entered it. It was also similar to Liam's inner world spell. Except, that didn't extend to the outer world. This did. In short, it was just amazing. Just to add, the mayor continued, "My formations allow everyone to be equal in strength once under my domain, and all forms of power will be disabled." Wait. Meaning you, me, Ucladd and the queen will all be the same level of strength as a regular person. Time after time, the mayor kept shocking Liam to his core. What kind of stupid ability reduced a powerhouse's ability to a normal level? Not to mention, take away their powers entirely? Albeit, it was only doable under the mayor's domain, but wasn't this a bit too much? "It's for a valid reason," the mayor said firmly. "Otherwise, the powerhouses could just study your powers and use them against you." Silence. True. Very true. In fact, Liam appreciated the man more than ever. After that, the mayor didn't add any more. That was an overview of his strongest powers, and each one was more ridiculous than the next. Now, it was Liam's turn to share. Sir Cornelius was doing his best not to show his excitement. But it definitely showed. "Well," Liam said after a short pause. "As you know, I'm a darkness elemental." Liam raised a hand, and dense flames of darkness surged from them. The mayor nodded profusely again, and Liam's eyes fell on his chin as it jiggled. "I can also manipulate my blood contents." Liam raised a finger to the ceiling. A clot of blood emerged from his nail. Then, it slowly took the form of a mini Liam. Then, it crystallized, turning into a pop figure, which Liam put on the mayor's desk. The mayor's eyes widened in shock and amazement. I get to keep it?" Liam paused, then smiled. "No." The figurine shattered apart. Chapter 460 Explode. Otter's note adjustment from last chapter. Mayor didn't keep the blood figurine. As the Liam figurine shattered into a million motes of red glitter, a sour look bloomed on the mayor's face. Liam gave him a wry smile, but under the ruby-red lighting from the rose chandelier, it looked sinister. "I'm sure you understand, Mayor. My blood is a little too important for me to give to others so casually." The mayor raised a hand, shaking his head. His chin jiggled again. No. It's my fault. I shouldn't have made an esteemed guest uncomfortable with such an unreasonable request. You have every right to refuse. In fact, thank you for refusing." Liam nodded. Thankfully, the mayor wasn't an unreasonable or stingy person. Had it been anyone else, they would have thrown a temper tantrum and acted like they were entitled to Liam's gift. It wasn't surprising anymore. The rich and powerful were so used to getting what they wanted, their brains shut down when they didn't. Huh. That sounded just like the Royce family. The mayor looked back at Liam with a light smile and made a "please" continued gesture. Right. Liam wasn't done with the demonstration. He outstretched a hand to the side. "Thanks to my blood, and combining with a shifter octopus, I could freely manipulate my body into any form I want to." Shing. Liam's right hand twisted and turned, bursting into a single, jagged spike made just from his dark crimson bone matter. The mayor's crystal blue eyes shone with amazement. There was a long moment of silence. You've combined with an octopus?" the mayor said incredulously. "It's a long story," Liam said with a wry smile. "I doubt speaking about it here would be appropriate." After a quiet pause, the mayor nodded. Obviously, Liam hadn't included the details of how he gained his powers in his story. Perhaps there wasn't a way possible for him to accurately explain it in the first place. At least, without sounding like an absolute madman. Which he was. But the mayor didn't push for details. Slowly, the arm reverted back to a normal humanoid hand. Next, shadows flowed from Liam's arm and enveloped his entire body. "You can guess where the name Temple of Shadow came from," Liam said. "I can manipulate their mercurial form, and enhance, sharpen or strengthen anything I want." The mayor watched intently as Liam slowly submerged into the floor, then re-emerged from the ceiling head first. Silently, the mayor's eyes sparkled once more as he idly twisted the tip of his mustache. A moment later, Liam sat back on his chair. Liam pointed to his right eye. "There's also my right eye," Liam said, conjuring a quick illusion of himself on the mayor's desk. "It could do that." Slightly amazed, the mayor leaned in and looked at the illusion from different angles. Then, he looked at Liam with a nod. Illusions were just illusions. They could never be used to kill anything, hence why the mayor didn't over-exaggerate and praise him. Liam continued. "As you know, I'm the Eternal Sword's heir," Liam said, unsheathing his odachi. "Shuring. This is the Black Blade." The mayor's wide eyes ran along the peerless edge of the black odachi, quietly studying its near-perfect form. By now, Liam realized the mayor loved entertainment. Sort of like how some rich individuals enjoyed keeping lions in their backyards. Sir Cornelius enjoyed seeing the most dangerous, powerful people on the planet showcase their abilities. "May I hold it?" the mayor asked, hoping it wasn't an unreasonable request. Liam gave him a wry look. "I would, but the sword itself doesn't want to be held by anyone other than me." The mayor raised a brow. N-0 "One of the Eternal Sword's abilities," Liam said. "I can speak to my blades." The mayor chuckled incredulously. "What's it saying now?" Liam glanced at the odachi. Silence. "Please don't let him hold me. Please don't let him hold me. Please don't let him hold me." Liam looked back at the mayor. "Don't let me go," Liam said. Technically, it was the truth. Except, the odachi wanted nothing to do with the mayor. Saying that flat out was a little blunt. And quite frankly, bad for the mood. So, Liam switched up the words a little. The mayor hummed in amazement, twisting his mustache. "A Celestial's inheritor, you're among a tiny, elite group of people, Mr. Liam." Liam arched his brow. Who else inherited a Celestial's work? Sir Cornelius tooted, then laughed cheekily. "I wish I could say, my friend, I really do." The mayor grew serious for his next few words. "But my very life depends on it." Silence. Liam brushed that topic aside. It had to be one of the top 5 powerhouses. There had to be a reason they were so damn strong and revered. "Never mind that," the mayor said in a lighter tone. "Please, continue. I'm sure you're just about to conclude." Liam nodded. There was no need to talk about the Eternal Sword anymore. Liam would just show his greatest powers and get the meeting over with. "By the way," Liam said suddenly. "What happens if you tell someone else a lie?" The mayor smiled. "I instantly explode. My path denies any deceit or dishonesty, and there are already truth formations all around the mount. The law of balance will cause me to outright die if I betray that covenant." Liam hummed to himself. That was good to know. "But if it makes you feel any better, I'll add some more protections around the area." A moment later, the mayor waved his hand again. Any faint sounds echoing from the outside grew muffled and distant, before fading into absolute silence. An invisible isolation barrier had formed around the two. Good enough, Liam thought. Liam raised a hand. Red sparks gathered on his palm and crackled like lightning as it expanded, gradually repulsing the space around it. This, Liam said, is chaos. The mayor's jaw fell. His chin was jiggling on its own. Liam wasn't done though. On his left, a black hole expanded in size. The mayor's top hat was nearly yanked off his head, but he used his hand to hold it in place. The mayor's eyes widened even further. What was that thing? And why was it pulling him towards it? The black hole and chaos combined, slowly forming a tiny mass of void on the tip of Liam's index finger. And this, Liam said, is void. The mayor's monocle fell off his face.